All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about something really powerful today, war poetry. And we're going to see how it's not just poetry, it's one of the most profound ways we have of bearing witness to history.
It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's anything but. Because when you throw art right into the middle of the chaos of war, it does something incredible. It doesn't just describe what's happening, it completely transforms how we understand it.
So, what is war poetry really? I mean, it's not just about troop movements or grand strategies. Think of it more like this collision point between art, history, and just raw, unfiltered human suffering. Its real job is to capture all the stuff that gets left out. Not just the physical destruction, but the hidden damage, the psychological and moral landscape of conflict. Okay, so that brings us to the big question. Why is this stuff so vital? We're about to see how this kind of poetry uncovers a type of truth, a kind you're just not going to find in your average history textbook.
Here is the thing that makes war poetry so incredibly moving. It shows you what the official story leaves out, what the propaganda posters and the government reports try to gloss over. It gives a voice to the actual person on the ground, their fear, that sinking feeling of disillusionment when the patriotic parades are over, the guilt, the loss. It's the truth, told from the trenches up.
For centuries, if you read a poem about war, it was probably all about glory and honor. But then came the First World War, and it just broke everything. The sheer scale of the mechanized slaughter was something new, and it demanded a completely new kind of poetry. This was a massive, fundamental turning point. And you can really see that shift laid out perfectly right here. On one side, you've got the old school stuff, poems all about glory, honor, how wonderful it is to sacrifice for your country. But then, look at the other side. This is what came crawling out of the trenches of World War I. It's not celebratory, it's a raw testimonial. It's all about personal trauma, and its goal? To show you just how brutal and horrifying war really is. So this new poetry, it started talking about things people just didn't talk about back then. Stuff like shell shock, what we'd now call PTSD, or that profound feeling of being completely alienated from the world. And it wasn't just describing things. No, it was a full-on critique of the posters and the speeches that got them into that mess in the first place. It finally gave a voice to the average soldier, the guy who was just a cog in this giant, terrible machine.
Okay, theory is one thing, but to really get it, you have to see it in action. So let's zoom in on a perfect example. We're going to dissect one of the most powerful and most devastating anti-war poems ever written. And it was written by a soldier who was right there in the middle of it all, Wilfred Owen. All right, so this Latin phrase, you've got to understand, this was everywhere during the war. I mean, it was drilled into school kids, carved onto monuments. It was the ultimate patriotic slogan. It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. But Wilfred Owen, he saw what dying for your country actually looked like, and he decided he was going to tear that noble idea apart. So how does Owen start his poem? Not with a bang, not with a heroic charge. No, he starts with pure, soul-crushing exhaustion. He paints this picture of soldiers who look like old beggars under sacks, just totally worn down, almost subhuman. And if you listen to the way the words sound, that heavy slogging rhythm, it's like you can feel them trudging through the mud yourself. And then, bam, everything changes. The rhythm of the poem just shatters. The words get short, sharp, frantic. Owen throws you right into the middle of the absolute terror of a gas attack, that panic scramble for a gas mask. There's no glory in that. It's just raw animal fear. And then comes this line. It's one of the most haunting images in all of literature. He describes watching another soldier who couldn't get his mask on in time, and he says he saw him as under a green sea drowning. It's this weirdly beautiful yet horrifying, nightmarish image that he uses to make you, the reader, watch this man die. He forces you to be a witness. But he doesn't let you linger in that poetic metaphor. No, he yanks you right back to the brutal, ugly truth with just 3 words. Guttering, choking, drowning. They're awful, visceral words. You can almost hear them. It's the sound of a man dying horribly, and Owen makes absolutely sure you don't miss a second of it. So after dragging you through all of that horror, after making you watch that man die, he comes back to that famous Latin phrase, and he gives his final verdict. He calls it simply the old lie. It's just a knockout punch. He completely reframes patriotism, showing it as a dangerous and fatal deception.
Okay, so let's shift gears and try something a little different, a modern twist. If this kind of poetry is so deeply rooted in real, lived in human trauma, what happens when you ask an AI to write it? I mean, an AI has experienced literally nothing. Can it even come close? Well, someone ran an experiment to find out. So here was the prompt they gave the AI poetry generator. Pretty straightforward. Write a war poem on the Indo-Pak War of 1971 in the style and tone of Wilfred Owen. So basically, channel Owen, but for a totally different war. And check out how it starts. In the trenches by Jasora's broken fields, where night and smoke hid every shattered cry. Wow, right off the bat it's trying to sound like Owen. It's got the specific place name, the dark and smoky imagery. Not a bad start, honestly. Pretty convincing.
And then it does this. It zooms right in on one person's suffering, which is a classic Owen move. A man beside me gasped for air, his hands clawing at nothing, his breath fading. See? It's got the visceral details, that feeling of helplessness. It's definitely hitting all the right notes, imitating the style very effectively.
And it even sticks the landing with a strong anti-war message. If they ask of victory, speak softly of grief, for in every triumph a mother's heart breaks. I mean, it gets it. The AI understands that the point isn't about victory, it's about loss. That's a very Owen thing to say. So, what's the final verdict on our AI poet? Honestly, it's impressive. As you can see here, it totally gets the imagery right, it nails the anti-war feeling, but, and this is a big but, the limitations are what really matter. It's a great copycat. It's a surface-level imitation. It can't possibly know what the mud in Jasor actually felt like, or the specific kind of fear in that war. It has the style down, but it's missing the soul. It's missing the human experience. Okay, let's zoom back out and wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway here? What is the whole point of war poetry? Why are we still reading these poems sometimes 100 years after the fighting stopped? Well, I think it boils down to these three essential jobs. First, it's a moral testimony, a statement from the people who were actually there, who saw the truth. Second, it's a kind of historical document, but one that captures the human side of conflict. And third, it's a powerful and timeless warning, a critique of power and the stories we're told to justify war. And that really leaves us with one last crucial question to think about. For more than a century now, poets have been shouting this truth from the rooftops, showing us the real human price of war. So the question isn't whether the poets are still speaking, it's whether we are truly listening.